In this video, we're going to take a look at creating our first Xcode project. And this is the general introduction to using Xcode. I'm going to get you started, and your task then is to complete this mini project. So what we're going to do first of all is create an Xcode project here. And if you watch the previous video, you know that we use iOS and I'm creating an app. Next. These settings have already been set. Again, you need to refer to the previous video here. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call this color switcher. Click on next, and I'm going to save the project in a location that I can access, and it should be a location that is available for me to find the project if I wanted to in the future. Okay, so make sure that you are organizing your files properly. Click on create here. And so this is our project. I'm going to go straight on over to the storyboard. And in the storyboard, this is our view controller here. Okay, and in the view controller, I'm going to add a single button. Okay, here's our button. And a lot of this has already been explained in the previous video in terms of this being the object library and what you can find here, etc., etc. So I suggest that you actually refer to the previous video because I will be going through things quite quickly here. So I have my button on the storyboard, and what I'm going to do here is initially I'm going to start off with one button, and that is going to be the scope of this video. And then you are required to complete it by adding additional buttons. So what I'm going to do here is maybe just give this button a title first of all. So I've got red here. This is the attributes inspector. Okay, and what I'm going to do here at the same time is maybe change the font. Why not? Maybe just choose one of these system fonts here. Rounded, and then just give it a size. The size 20. Click on OK. And what I'm going to do here at the same time is I'm going to give this button a background color which actually reflects the title. So this is a red button, so let's just go in and just change it to a red color. Oh, wrong part. Let's just go back here. This is red here, and this is just back to default. Okay, so it's red. And one of the things as well here is you can see that red does not, the title, which is blue, does not really contrast well with the background color really well. So I'm just going to go back up here and just change this to text color to white. So that's a lot better here. Okay, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the assistant editor here. And in the assistant editor, I'm just going to give myself a little bit of space. Okay, I'm just going to extend this out a little bit here as well. Just hide these sidebars here just to give myself a little bit of space. And what I'm going to do here is, first of all, the view, the whole purpose of this app is that when each of these buttons are clicked, it will change the color of the background view to reflect the color of the button. So when I click on red here, the background should change to red. So what I'm going to do here is, first of all, this white area, which is called the view, I'm going to control drag from here. So hold down the control key on my keyboard, drag outwards, and just drop it here. I'm going to give this a name, and you need to be quite descriptive with your names. You need to make sure that you're descriptive. So let's just call this background view. And what you should notice here is that, first of all, the first letter of the first word, as in the starting letter, is actually lowercase. There are no spaces in between the words, and every subsequent word, i.e. the second word onwards, the first letter of each word is capitalized. So lowercase to begin with, and then every subsequent word, the first letter is capitalized, and this helps with readability. I'm not going to change anything else here. I'm going to click on connect, and you can see here that this connection has been created. And if I hover over this dot here, you can see that it highlights the part of the view controller, which is essentially connected to the class file. Okay. The next thing I want to do then as well is, now that I have this connection, what I like to do whenever I'm working on a particular project is just to make sure that all of my code is organized. So I like to have my outlets at the top, then a new line, variables, new line, and then any actions that I have. Okay, so it's not going to be evident in this particular project right now, in this example, particularly because I'm not going to have a lot of code inside here. But when you start developing more detailed apps, that's something that you're going to be you need to be mindful of. So the next thing I want to do is I want to click on this button here, control drag to here, just underneath, and let go of the control key and let go of the mouse here, and I'm asked to create a new connection. Now this time around I don't want to create an outlet. Remember the difference between an outlet and an action. An outlet allows us to change the properties of an object. So you can see here that because we want to change the color property, the background color of the view, we needed to create an outlet. But because we want this button, when the user clicks on the button, for the button to actually do something, we don't want to make an outlet, but we want to create an action, because the button, by clicking on the button, that's essentially an action, and then that will actually do something. And in our example, it will change the color. So what we want to do is we want to say, give this again a relevant name. So what I'm going to say is change red color action. Okay, and you can see here that I've used the same convention. The first letter is lowercase. This is called lower camel case, lowercase, and then every subsequent word, not separated by any spaces, but just the letter has been capitalized, first letter, and that really helps with readability. So I'm not going to change any settings here. Everything else is set to default. I'm going to hit connect. And you can see here that this looks slightly different. First of all, this is an outlet, the first one here that I created, and you can see here this is an action. This is also a function, and we used functions last year when we were looking at Python, and functions allow us to run code sequentially. So if you've got blocks of code that you want to run at the same time, essentially that will be, you will use a function for that, right? So if you want to group your code together and you want to have this code run with a kind of single call to the function, then you will essentially need to define that as a function. So what we need to do here is the code for our button needs to go within these two brackets here. So this is the opening curly bracket, this is the end curly bracket. You can see here if I click around here, you'll see that it highlights the opening and closing brackets. So what I like to do is I like to give myself some breathing room here. Okay, so it gives me some space, and all of the code needs to basically be inside this area here, between this bracket and this bracket. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, just after the starting bracket, I'm going to press enter, and you can see it positions my cursor where it should be positioned. Remember that your code should be indented, it should be nicely formatted, so whenever I look at it or somebody else looks at it, it is easier to read. And here we're going to be putting in our code to change our background color. So because we actually want to change the background color of the background view, we start off by saying background view. Okay, and then we need to access the property which is the background color. Okay, so I'm going to say dot, and then I'm going to start typing in background color, and then I'm going to say equals. Now there's a few ways you can do this. Okay, so you can actually use dot red, and that will give me some predefined colors. So you have dot red here, you have dot green, some predefined colors, or you can actually say color literal. Okay, if you say color literal, it gives you the ability to the ability to access the color palette by double clicking. Okay, by double clicking, and then you can actually access the colors from here. You have the ability to access other colors as well. So there's a few ways you can do this. If you use dot red or dot green or dot blue, it's predefined colors, but if you type in color literal, it allows us to access the color palette. So I'm just going to choose red here, okay? And then I'm going to delete these extra spaces, okay? So you can see here that the code is it's indented in, it's within the action here, and this is exactly what I want to see. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to test this now. So what we need to do by default, and this is I think this is a flaw within this version of Xcode, is it starts off with this iPod Touch, and that's not what you want to see because the sizes are going to be incorrect. You're designing on an iPhone 11. If you preview on a 7, then it's going to squash certain elements or user interface elements, and it's not going to look too good. So what we want to do is we want to switch this to an iPhone 11 here, and we're going to run this. Okay, so when we run this, it builds the project, it checks the code to see if there's no immediate errors with the code, and at the same time, it begins launching the simulator. So it launches the iPhone 11 simulator here, right, which is essentially for all intents and purposes, it's a software version of your iPhone 11. And if I click on this now, so it's launched it, you can see here the buttons in the middle. If I click on this now, you'll see that it changes to red. Now, obviously, the outline of the button has disappeared. There's probably a few things we can actually do to get that fixed. One of the things we can do is we can create an outlet to the button, just like we did for the background view. So we create an outlet to the button, and whenever the button is clicked, maybe we change the color of the button so it's a little kind of bit more evident, it's more prominent. Right now, it just kind of disappears into the background. So that's one thing we can potentially do. I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to kind of finish up here. What your job is you need to complete this app, and you need to ensure that you have multiple colors. So you need to possibly have multiple buttons here, and try to configure multiple buttons. Maybe choose some colors you like. Maybe you start off with red. You can have a green button, a blue button, and try to configure this so whenever you actually click on the button, it begins changing the background color. Okay, that's it for now, and I'll see you soon.